Some movies flop so hard they take down the careers of everyone involved. But this one bombed so badly, it sank an entire subgenre. And even today, it's the reason Hollywood almost never touches pirate movies. Hit that like button and get ready, because today we're diving into a production gone completely off the rails, a studio that went bankrupt, and a celebrity couple who burned through so much money they took their own careers down with them, along with every pirate movie that followed. Today we're talking about Cutthroat Island. Back in Hollywood's golden age, pirate adventures were guaranteed hits. Movies like Captain Blood wowed audiences and turned actors like Errol Flynn into legends. But by the early 60s, nobody cared about pirate ships or treasure hunts anymore. Every attempt to bring the genre back flopped. Roman Polanski tried with pirates, but the project was troubled from day one. For starters, Polanski was facing serious charges and had to flee the US. He shot the movie in Europe with a $40 million budget, which was insane for the time, but it barely made $1 million back, and critics absolutely tore it apart. Polanski's Pirates proved one thing: pirate movies just didn't work in modern cinema. But the genre would get one last shot, thanks to a bold Hollywood studio called Carolco Pictures. Carolco was founded in 1976 by Hungarian producer Andrew Vajna, and one of the main players in this story, Lebanese producer Mario Kassar. During the 80s, they built an empire with blockbuster hits. But they also backed more auteur-driven films that managed to find success. Carolco quickly became the most exciting independent studio in Hollywood. Their secret weapon? Pre-selling international rights before shooting even started. They knew 60% of a film's revenue came from outside the US, and they used that to fuel bigger and bigger productions. But the partnership didn't last. Kassar loved the Hollywood lifestyle. He wanted to play the game and live it too. Vajna was more cautious and didn't approve. By 1989, he walked away from the company. With Vajna gone, Kassar took full control. He started writing massive checks to the biggest stars and betting huge on blockbusters. And it worked for a while. He scored major hits like Total Recall and Terminator 2. And even risky projects like Basic Instinct paid off. But Kassar also burned through millions on luxuries, stretch limos with the Carolco logo, outrageous parties at the Cannes Film Festival, you name it. The financial chaos caught up fast. In 1991 alone, Carolco lost $265 million. Kassar was forced to restructure, sell off assets, and pull in other studios as co-producers. By early 1994, the word bankruptcy was looming over Carolco's offices. Kassar needed a hit, and fast. His best shot was Crusade, an epic adventure that would reunite Arnold Schwarzenegger and director Paul Verhoeven after Total Recall. The budget? A jaw-dropping $100 million. More than Carolco had ever spent. Kassar gave it the green light, but deep down, he had doubts. The script was violent, too dark, definitely not family-friendly. So he went looking for a safer bet. That's when he dusted off a pirate story they'd shelved years earlier. The original writers behind Cutthroat Island were James Gorman and Michael Frost Beckner. In the early 90s, they had a deal with the Walt Disney Company, and one of their projects was a classic pirate adventure, packed with action, humor, some dark twists, and the energy of a modern blockbuster. The story kicked off with 4 men stealing a shipment of gold and hiding it, only to betray each other. Years later, the treasure becomes the target of Shaw, a fearless pirate, and his rival, a villain known as the Scar. Joining him is Morgan Adams, the young daughter of a doctor caught up in the adventure. Hoping to boost their chances of getting Cutthroat Island made, Gorman and Frost Beckner pitched it as the movie version of Pirates of the Caribbean, the smash hit Disney theme park ride. They brought the idea straight to Michael Eisner, Disney's CEO at the time. As we've mentioned in other videos, Eisner greenlit plenty of projects that became classics, but not this one. He wasn't interested, though we'll circle back to Pirates of the Caribbean later. After Disney turned it down, the writers took the script elsewhere. That's how they ended up at Carolco, who paid $1.7 million for it. Gorman and Frost Beckner were officially out of the project. Though, without knowing it, they had just dodged one of the most chaotic productions Hollywood had ever seen. With Carolco's future hanging by a thread, Kassar pinned his hopes on Cutthroat Island. It reminded him of the pirate movies he loved as a kid, and he figured a new generation would love them too. To make it more appealing, he brought in a new pair of screenwriters, Bruce A. Evans and Raynold Gideon. When it came to picking a director, Kassar turned to Finnish filmmaker Renny Harlin. Harlin had started out in horror but made his name with big action hits like Die Hard 2 and Cliffhanger, the latter backed by Carolco. Kassar saw him as talented, obsessed with spectacle, and most importantly, easy to control. Harlin wasn't sold on the script, but like Kassar, he had a soft spot for pirate stories. This was his shot at making one, so he signed the deal. For the role of Morgan, Harlin had only one actress in mind, Geena Davis. She'd starred in classics throughout the 80s and won an Oscar for The Accidental Tourist. In the early 90s, she was back in the spotlight with Thelma and Louise. And on top of that, Davis and Harlin had just gotten married, making them one of Hollywood's hottest power couples. As luck would have it, Davis was looking for a big action movie that could turn her into a huge action star. Excited, she signed on to Cutthroat Island, with no idea what was waiting for her. With a director and a leading lady locked in, Kasser greenlit pre-production on Cutthroat Island. The budget was set at $60 million, a big number, but not outrageous. As usual, he raised the money through international pre-sales. At first, things seemed to be going smoothly. Harlin assembled a solid crew, including cinematographer Oliver Wood and camera operator Nicola Pecorini. Locations were locked down in Malta and Thailand, but they still needed a big star to play Shaw, the lead pirate. Kasser turned to Michael Douglas, who he'd worked with on Basic Instinct. Douglas liked the idea. He had experience with adventure films thanks to Romancing the Stone, and wanted to return to something lighter. He agreed to a $13 million payday but laid down two conditions. Filming had to start immediately due to his schedule, and his character needed equal screen time with Geena Davis. Harlin agreed, but now the clock was ticking and he still wasn't happy with the script. Davis wasn't either. She felt Morgan deserved a bigger role in the story, and honestly, she was fine with being the sole lead. Harlin passed those notes to the writers, Evans and Gideon, who scrambled to make changes, fast. Filming was set to begin in January 1994, aiming for a summer 1995 release. The rewrites completely blindsided Douglas. In the first draft, his character had a smaller role. The next draft, even fewer scenes. By the third version, he was basically just tagging along with Morgan, who was now the undisputed star. Douglas confronted Harlin and Kasser for answers, and when he didn't get any, he walked away. For Harlin, it was a nightmare. Without a star, the whole project was at risk of being scrapped. But Kasser couldn't let that happen. The specter of bankruptcy was already haunting Carolco, but they had to push forward. International buyers were waiting. At that point, the studio was down to just two projects, Cutthroat Island and Crusade. With money running out, Kasser had to pick one. He went with the pirate epic, betting it could reach a wider audience. Crusade was shelved, costing the studio $13 million in losses. Carolco's faith in Cutthroat Island didn't boost morale. Both Davis and Harlin were convinced the movie would sink without a big star. They wanted out, but Kasser reminded them they were under contract. Reluctantly, the couple stayed on board. With just weeks before shooting, Harlin stopped overseeing the crew and went star hunting. He chased Tom Cruise, got turned down, tried Mel Gibson, same result. Desperate, Harlin started offering the role to anyone he could find. Jeff Bridges, Daniel Day-Lewis, Michael Keaton, Kurt Russell, Keanu Reeves, Liam Neeson, Tim Robbins, Ralph Fiennes, Gabriel Byrne, all said no. Until one finally said yes, Matthew Modine. Not exactly a household name, but he liked pirate stories and had fencing experience. To lock him in, Harlin gave him the version of the script Douglas had approved, where Shaw was still the lead. He also made sure Modine got paid almost as much as Douglas would have. At last, filming on Cutthroat Island was about to begin. But just how bad did things get on the set of Cutthroat Island? Well, here's what happened in just the first few days. After wasting time hunting for a lead actor, Harlin had completely neglected the script. He still thought it was weak, but Kasser couldn't afford any more rewrites. So Harlin paid $1 million out of his own pocket to hire a new writer, Marc Norman, who worked on the script during filming. He'd also ignored production design. The moment he stepped on set, he hated everything that had been built. He ordered it all torn down and rebuilt. The pirate ships, for example, had to be historically accurate, with 20 cannons on each side, so they'd look good when blown to pieces. Harlin even sent a memo to the art team that read, "I don't want something big, I want something enormous. I don't want something fast, I want something explosive. I don't want accidents, I want disasters." And the disasters came, but not the ones Harlin had in mind. To avoid the risks of shooting at sea, the crew built massive water tanks in Malta. But right before filming, the pipes burst, flooding the set with sewage water. Once they finally started shooting, cinematographer Oliver Wood fell off a crane. He broke his leg and had to leave the production. He was replaced by Peter Levy. The string of accidents only made things worse on set. Before Levy arrived, Harlin tried to keep shooting with Pecorini, the camera operator. But Pecorini wasn't on board with Harlin's methods, and he let him know. The two ended up screaming at each other, and Harlin fired him on the spot. Pecorini was so well respected that over 20 crew members quit in solidarity. Production had to scramble, pulling in replacements at the last minute. Through all of this, Harlin kept his focus, mainly on Davis. He made her do her own stunts, even the dangerous ones. Off set, the two acted like newlyweds. They were obsessed with V8 vegetable juice, and Harlin had tons of it shipped to Malta. This time he didn't pay for it, the production did. While Davis had Harlin's full attention, Matthew Modine was practically invisible. On set, he quickly realized his character was just a supporting role, but he didn't complain. What bothered him was that Harlin gave him zero direction. All he cared about was making Davis look good and blowing stuff up. Modine even got hurt during a stunt, and Harlin barely acknowledged it. Still, Modine stayed professional. Meanwhile, Kassar was too busy steering Kurolko's sinking ship to step in and rein Harlin in. And pretty soon, the $60 million budget ran out. Kassar had to turn to a European banking group for help, securing another $40 million just to finish the shoot. The final budget ballooned to $100 million. After grueling, chaotic months of filming, Cutthroat Island finally wrapped. As the crew was packing up, they stumbled upon a storage room filled with crates of V8 juice Harlin and Davis had ordered. The team had to drink it so it wouldn't go to waste. A perfect snapshot of the madness on set and a sign of the disaster waiting for both the movie and Kurolko. During post-production, Harlin focused all his energy on shaping Cutthroat Island. The release date was pushed back to December 1995, giving him a little more time. But he knew Kurolko was hanging by a thread. Meanwhile, Kassar was being hounded by the IRS, but he kept trying to convince even them he had a new hit on his hands. He struck a distribution deal with Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer. Unfortunately, MGM was in the middle of being sold and couldn't put any money into marketing. In the end, it was too much for Kassar to handle. In November 1995, Kurolko filed for bankruptcy. At that point, even a decent box office performance from Cutthroat Island wouldn't have changed a thing. But what came next was worse than anyone expected. The critics tore the movie apart, and when it finally hit theaters on December 22, 1995, audiences stayed away. With the final budget estimated at $115 million, Cutthroat Island made just $16 million worldwide. It was such a disaster that the Guinness Book of World Records named it the biggest box office flop in movie history. Cutthroat Island became Hollywood's ultimate embarrassment, but the fallout didn't stop there. The failure of Cutthroat Island and the fall of Kurolko took a toll on everyone involved, and on pirate movies around the world. Davis and Harlin worked together one last time on the thriller The Long Kiss Goodnight. That production went a lot smoother, and the movie even gained a bit of a cult following. Still, the couple divorced in 1998 after Harlin's infidelity. Harlin kept working, but no one ever trusted him with a blockbuster again. As for Davis, she faded into smaller roles, nowhere near the stardom she once reached for. Kassar landed jobs at different companies. One of them, Bricktop, even revived the Kurolko name in 2015. He promised to bring back the glory days, but that never happened, and the company was eventually rebranded as Recall Studios. Modine fared slightly better, landing a major role in Stranger Things. The Cutthroat Island disaster also reminded Hollywood that pirates were box office poison. But remember that plan to turn the Pirates of the Caribbean ride into a movie? Disney finally pulled it off in 2003, with Johnny Depp as Captain Jack Sparrow. It was a massive hit and spawned a whole saga. Still, each sequel generated less buzz, and now Disney is struggling to reboot the franchise. Cutthroat Island could have been a success, but it sank under the weight of ego and recklessness. Today, it still tops the most embarrassing box office stats and stands as a cautionary tale of Hollywood excess. And above all, it's proof that some genres really do seem cursed, like a treasure pirates were never meant to find. He's the last great movie star in Hollywood. He's headlined classics, worked with the best directors, and dominated the box office for decades. But his rise came at a cost: failed marriages, controversial beliefs, and personal sacrifices.